Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering the patch 14.3 notes, so if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The room of there are a decent amount of changes this patch. A lot of them are focused towards solo queue. However, we have got some other pro nerfs, Azir, Karma being two key ones. Karma doing relatively decent in solo queue as well. Azir also performing quite well in solo queue at the moment, so no surprises there. Alongside this, we have a bunch of systems changes, a couple things towards sort of the lost chapter items, trying to make them feel a bit better and giving them a bit of love. Other than that, they've got a bit of a tune down on some of the proc damage items, and then some just general buffs to some of the other options. So let's get into it. Vanguard is going to be introduced within this patch, I believe. Yeah, starting in patch. Oh, I mean, it will be added this patch, and then they're going to push back Vanguard's launch until around 40.4 or 40.5. So that's interesting. Windows bin spec update. That's also something to be aware of. Assault is being adjusted, so his Q is going to be going down in mana cost, 15 at all ranks. The Stardust stacks per champion burst, however, is going up from 1 to 3. Astral Flight is also having its mana cost reduced by a decent amount, 30 going down on this. Cooldown on this is going from 22 to 16 to 15 to 11, so big buffs so far on both the Q and W. The Q damage amp is also going to go from 14 to 20% to 18 to 26%. However, the E stacks are going to be going down a decent amount, 5 down to 2 on the champion stacks, 5 down to 2 on the epic monsters, 3 down to 2 on cannon minion takedowns, and 3 down to 2 on large monster takedowns. Overall, these are huge buffs. They are like, he's going to lose a bit of scaling, but then a small amount, I mean a decent amount of that will be kind of brought back through the Q. On top of that though, he's just getting a decent Q buff and a really big W buff, so I imagine Assault mid might be around an S plus tier pick. Definitely worth picking up if you do want to play him now that he is a bit more aggressive in playstyle and getting a decent amount of buffs. Azir is going to be losing 2 base health regen, which is going to mainly affect him in pro play. You're not going to notice as much in solo queue, but yeah, small enough here, about 0.5, maybe 1% win rate down. Brand is also going to be hit this patch. He got hit with a hotfix nerf as they massively overbuffed him with a tick rate change towards his passive. They are now nerfing that again to 20% to 200% on monster modifiers. The bug fix, Blaze no longer deals more than 2% maximum health damage over a single application. And the Q seer is going to be going down by 10 flat at all ranks as well. So a bit of damage down. Gonna hurt him mid and or this is gonna hurt him in jungle primarily, but it's also going to hurt him in support and mid with the 10 damage loss on the Q. Corki is receiving a couple of adjustments. This is to try and, well, this is like a part of a couple of things they want to do to him. I believe they are doing some more changes next patch. The main thing here, though, is that Malignance will no longer proc with his R. As kind of like a compensation buff, they are reducing the cooldown later on W, so 20 to 16, down to 20, down to 12. Mana cost is also going to be going down by 20. The damage is also going to be going up by 20% AP ratio, so relatively large buffs on the W, and the package is now only going to be able to be held for 45 seconds instead of 60 seconds. Overall, relatively nice changes towards Corki on the W and package. The R interaction is a nerf though. If you are building Malignance and Eclipse, you will feel this a decent amount, so do be aware of that. Overall, yeah, I hope they do some follow-up changes to Corki, as he is in a pretty frustrating spot at the moment, and it'd be nice to see him push more towards either being in the bot lane or just out of pro play, because it is not an exciting pro pick. Ezreal got overshot on the buffs. The Q does not have a correct image on it, which is very nice. However, it is going to be losing 5% AD ratio. The ult is going to be losing 25 flat damage at all ranks, and it is also going to be losing a 20% bonus AD ratio. So relatively large nerfs towards Ezreal. However, he is going to definitely feel the Essence Reaver buff, which I will cover in a minute. That is going up by 5 AD. So it's not as big of a nerf, but yeah, you will feel this a bit, especially that is a decent amount of damage down. Alawi is going to be having her damage reduced on her tentacles. However, she is having her tentacle range increase from 800 to 925, which gives her a lot more access towards the middle of the lane, which is where she's really punished for fighting at the moment. I imagine this will be a relatively strict buff towards Alawi, but the damage down does kind of lower the overall impact of it. It's mostly just quality of life, which is a good thing here. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of Alawi. I think she is a large frustration point within top lane. But if they do want to keep the champion balanced, then it makes sense to do something like this and to keep the champion enjoyable. Karma is going to have her RQ soul flare damage decreased by, it's going to go up by 5 early ranks and then down by 40 later on. And the AP ratio is going to be going down from 70% AP to 50% AP, so a relatively large nerf there. This is definitely not going to hit as hard later on into the game. Early game though, staying relatively similar. This is where you tend to feel it the most. It just means her scaling is a significant amount. Lillia is going to have her AP ratio reduced from 1.5 to 1.25 on the passive. And the Q AP ratio is going to be going down from 90% to 70%. Considering this is a double hit when you hit the true damage side of it, this is a large enough to Lillia. Lillia is very strong at the moment. Her and Brand are the two strongest junglers in the game. Whether it warrants like a 40% AP ratio nerf on the empowered Q hit, we'll have to see. But yeah, this is a large nerf. Both these might reduce her win rate by like a solid 5%. And yeah, put her in a balanced spot, maybe weak, possibly. Maokai is going to be getting some adjustments. So Maokai is incredibly strong in support at the moment. He is a relatively good jungler and a strong top laner. The base mana regen is going to be going down from 7.2 to 6, so a relatively small nerf here. This is to mainly tag Maokai support. The flat value on his passive is going to be going from 4 to 34 to being completely removed. However, the scaling is going to go up by 0.8% later on into the game. This is, well, I mean, it's only a buff later on into the game. It definitely does hurt him early game, as he is more reliant on the flat maximum health heal, especially if he's going like Frozen Heart builds, for example. The Q is going to get buffed. It is going to go from 8 to 5 seconds to 7 to 5 seconds. This is a large Maokai jungle buff. Maokai jungle also doesn't tend to rely on this as much, so it's also pretty important. The mana cost is going to be going down from 60 to 40. This will mostly affect top lane. The E sapling toss is going to go from 14 flat to 16 to 12, so this is going to be a nerf early game, but then a buff later on. I believe Maokai jungle maxes E seconds, so this will help Maokai jungle a decent amount. The mana cost is going to be going up early ranks from 45 to 60, but then going down by 5 later ranks, 85 down to 80. Nature's Grasp is also going to be nerfed. The cooldown is going to go up early game from 120 to 130, but it's going to go down later on into the game from 100 to 90. So overall, definitely pushing him more towards scaling. These changes are more focused towards helping Maokai solo lane, helping Maokai jungle, but nothing down Maokai support. I could see Maokai jungle being very strong next patch. I could also see Maokai top being very strong next patch. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Definitely some power down for support Maokai though. Nidalee is going to be gaining some magic resistance growth, going from 1.3 to 1.45. This isn't a huge amount, but it's still something. It's going to make her a bit better against some of the AP junglers and AP mid laners for sure. The E, however, is the main focus here. It is going to be going up from 35 to 95 to 50 to 150, which is a big heal buff. And the AP ratio is going to go from 27.5% AP to 35% AP. The maximum heal is still double the minimum, so this is a huge buff towards her E. This definitely makes it feel really good as a ability. Maybe we see some Nidalee supports, especially with the 20 to 60% bonus attack speed going to 30 to 70%. That is a large amount of attack speed. If it's optimal to Emax as Nidalee support, playing alongside a champion which is very attack speed reliant, then yeah, that might be something she can do. Of course, I don't really know at the moment, and it might not be anywhere near enough of an aggressive ability, but yeah, there's options there. It'll be interesting to see what people cook up. Pyke is getting buffed, which is surprising considering the champion isn't doing that bad at the moment. They are nerfing lethality options primarily for marksman, so he's not being hit that hard. His base armor is going to go up from 45 to 47, which is a large amount of base armor to have. This makes him very tanky. The Q bonus score is going to go from 100 to 300 to, say, 100 to 300, but the bonus AD ratio is going to go up from 60% bonus AD to 75% bonus AD, which is a huge snowballing buff. He's going to really value this, especially if he's building items like Hubris. The mana cost is going to be going down early on to the game from 74 to 90 to 70 to 90. This is a nice mid lane buff. The W is also going to be buffed, going from 40% flat to 45% flat, and the scaling is going to be going up by 0.5% per 1 lethality, to 2% per 1 lethality, which is so if you have 50 lethality, you're getting 100. If you have 50 lethality, you are getting 100% movement speed on this ability, which is pretty huge. I believe that's how it works. Yeah. Yeah. I'm having brain lag. It's fine. The E is also being buffed. It is going from 105 to 265 to 100 to 300, which is a huge amount of damage, flat damage to have on this ability. This is also a relatively nice mid lane Pyke buff, as he's going to get points in E earlier on into the game compared to something like support Pyke. So it'll be interesting to see how the balance works there, whether we start seeing mid lane Pyke appear again, how much this does for support Pyke, whether this is enough to make him like one of the meta options. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, things like Bard, Janna, Senna aren't being touched this patch, so they stay as strong as they are. Rengar is going to be losing 30 base health, which is a decent chunk of health to lose. The Q is the main thing here, though. It is going to be losing some AD scaling, going from 0 to 20% AD scaling to 0 to 15% AD scaling. The empowered damage is also going to be losing 10% of its AD scaling. So, yeah, relatively large nerfs towards Rengar here. Definitely hurts him primarily in elite play, where we see a lot of Rengar. Whether this does a huge amount towards low elo Rengar, I don't imagine it does. The champ's already pretty weak there. Most people don't really know how to pilot it. So yeah, mostly an elite skewed nerf. Definitely going to hurt Rengar. Shaco is receiving a bunch of changes. These are very much focused towards support Shaco being nerfed and a bit of a buff towards jungle Shaco. The mana regen growth is going down. This is once again mainly to hurt the support item, which gives bonus mana regen. The W Jack in the box is going to have its mana cost reduced if you put points into it. The bonus damage to monsters is going to go from 10 to 50 to 20 to 80. Grubproof Chico's Jack in the boxes are no longer one shot by grubs, which is a nice quality of life change. The mana cost on E is going to go up by 10. Our Hallucinate is going to have an orange poof when it snaps back towards Shaco. The clone clock is now displayed on the HUD. Shaco's clone no longer loses its auto attack and target when casting a spell, which is also a relatively nice change. Overall, yeah, these are huge buffs towards Shaco for sure. Clear speed going up, mana cost on W going down for like a bit of mana regeneration growth tag and a bit of a mana cost increase on E, and then yeah, very nice things towards the R. I imagine Shaco will be in a relatively nice spot next patch. Maybe not like meta or like S tier, but like a solid A tier option. Shyvana is going to receive some changes, which is good because she kind of sucks at the moment. The empowered attack bonus damage is going to go up by 15% on the AP ratio, which is a decent amount. I'd say relatively nice buff to get. The attack speed is going to go up from 40 to 60% to 50 to 70%. This is the attack speed she gets on the autos. The W burnout, the bonus movement speed is going to go from 30% to 50%. It's going to stay like that, but the scaling is going to go up from 0.8% AP to 0.12% AP, which is a large buff. Like, this is a very aggressive AP ratio for a movement speed ability. This is one of the highest in the game. So if you're building AP, you're going to gain a lot of movement speed. Do I suddenly think this will make AP Shyvana viable? No. It's pretty bad at the moment compared to AD Shyvana. You are still better off going like the Titanic, Frostfire, Sterex variation. Overall, she's just in a weak spot at the moment. I wouldn't really recommend playing this champion, as she's more of just a low elo pick. You'll hit like Emerald or Diamond, and then you'll really start struggling. The champion is very easy to punish in the jungle. She requires lots of gold to really come online. Very reliant on level 6, having her dragon form up. So yeah, the champ's going to need a bit more than this. It'd be nice to see some early game buffs just to give her a bit more life within like mid, maybe high elo. But yeah, she's getting changed, obviously, next year, so it'd be nice to see some kind of thing early on. Lillia is going to have her Q damage increased, going from 50 to 130 to 60 to 132. And the E is going to go from 16 to 14 seconds to 14 seconds at all ranks. This is interesting, as Lillia does see competitive play at the moment. She's not a bad pick, per se. Other items which she does use are also relatively, are getting buffed or relatively decent. So it'll be interesting to see where this lands. I imagine Lillia will be in a very good spot for pro and elite play. Whether she's in a good spot for solo queue, like lower tiers of solo queue, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, these are nice buffs, definitely. Clear speed up, close speed up. Cooldown is a big thing for clear speed, so yeah, definitely a good thing here. Teemo Q quality of life change. So Teemo Q blind should now immediately apply to targets hit by the Q, preventing Teemo from taking damage from an auto attack after the blind has been applied. Blind duration should now also be consistent with the debuff duration above the target's health bar. This is nice because it kind of worked. This is enough to Teemo, as Teemo mains knew this was kind of like how it worked. But however, it was kind of misleading for people playing against Teemo, as sometimes you would do damage when you were blinded, and sometimes you wouldn't do damage when you were no longer blinded. So yeah, now that it lines up correctly, definitely a nice thing. Yeah, bit of an off towards Teemo. Helps people play against him a bit more. Trundle is going to be losing some base health. That's going to be going down by 36. And the Q Trump is going to be losing 10 damage, which is a big nerf. Like, this is a very big change, especially like early on into the game. Losing 10 bonus attack damage on an ability like this is really going to hurt him. I imagine, he's doing really well at the moment, so this will probably put him down towards like the A tier. He tends to just be really oppressive in his ability to 1v1 and split push against people. These will definitely hurt that, hurts his ability to snowball, hurts his ability to trade. Yeah, good change. Twitch, E, quality of life change. If Twitch uses E at the same time his poison expires on an enemy, they will now take damage based on the number of stacks they had when the poison expires. This should result in the E cast being slightly more forgiving. Nice change there, slight buff towards Twitch. Wukong is going to be gaining some bonus range on his Q early on into the game, so 75 to 175 is now 135 to 175. The bonus physical damage is going to have its scaling go up by 10% bonus AD. The E Nimbus Strike is going to go from 10 to 8 seconds to 10 to 7 seconds, so a bit of a late, like level 13 kind of buff on Wukong. These are nice changes. These definitely help top lane Wukong more than jungle Wukong. Does this suddenly put Wukong in a spot where I'd recommend him? Probably not. I imagine he's still underpowered. He is definitely one of the more struggling top laners at the moment, but it is nice to see them giving him a change, and the bonus range should definitely help on the Q, especially trading early on into the game. So yeah, nice amount of power there. Yorick is receiving a bunch of adjustments. These are mainly focused on like quality of life, and like revisiting some of his more classic Bruiser builds. I think that was the goal with the changes here. So the summoning range on his passive is going down by 400. The Q heal is now going to go from 10 to 68, so staying at 10 to 68 based on level, but with a plus 4 to 8% missing health, halved versus non-champions, but no longer doubled when below 50% health. So yeah, more healing just generalistically. No longer got the amp when below the health threshold. The mana cost on this ability is going down by 5, which is a nice change if you are spamming this ability a lot. The cast time on E is going down by 0.08 seconds, which is nice as it makes it harder to dodge this ability for Yorick's. And the bonus damage on attacking Maiden's target is going to go from 369% of maximum health capped to 100, 200, 300 versus monsters, 2-second cooldown to 2.5, 3% capped at 100 versus monsters with no cooldown. So it makes attack speed more of an appealing stat on Yorick. Whether this does any funky things, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where Yorick ends up after these changes. The heal is the big one here. This definitely makes laning a bit more forgiving on him, and the E is a bit harder to dodge. These are the main focus points here, and then R obviously being able to output a lot more damage at outputting smaller amounts of damage at faster intervals. We'll have to see whether this ends up being a buff, whether it ends up being a nerf. It really depends on like how viable building attack speed on Yorick is. So yeah, be interesting to see. Zeri is going to be gaining 3 base AD. Nice buff here. Definitely makes her a bit easier to play early on into the game. Makes last hitting more forgiving as well. Our Lightning Crush is going to go from 100 to 70 to 80 to 70. So also a huge buff here. R is her main way of fighting people. Having this up more often throughout the game definitely gives her a lot more power. I imagine this will be a very big change towards Zeri. Definitely a lot of win rate gained here. Ziggs is going to have his base armor go up by 3. The armor growth is going to go up by 0.2. The W satchel is going to go from 24 to 12 to 20 to 12. So nice 6 buffs here. Definitely makes him a better bot laner. These are very nice against a lot of the marksmen. Makes him a bit more durable. The W satchel, of course, is both a mid lane and a bot lane buff. I believe Ziggs bot will still be the primary place where you are going to play him, but Ziggs mid will definitely benefit from these changes. Zyra is going to be losing 6 base mana regen. The mana regen growth is going to go up by 0.4. So doubled on this. The Q mana cost is going to go down by 15, and the siege charge progression on minions monster takedowns is going to be going up. So these are mainly focused around buffing up jungle Zyra and mid Zyra. So it'll be interesting to see where this kind of puts her. I could definitely see jungle Zyra being a lot nicer with this cooldown. But mid Zyra should really benefit from the mana cost going down on Q and the mana regeneration growth going up, as she'll be able to get levels quicker and be able to kind of even this back out. Essence Reaver is going to be gaining 5 attack damage, which is very nice for the champions which build it. It'll primarily be like Ezreal or Gangplank. These are the champions which will benefit, but maybe we'll see this item start to get picked back up on the likes of Lucian. Maybe Sivir picks it back up. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, Smolder also buys this item. So yeah, a couple of champions which will really benefit from that. Build path on Ginsu's is going to be changed slightly. The attack damage is going to be going up by 5, and the ability power is going to be going up by 5. Main champion here, main 2 champions here are going, well, actually 3. Ignore me. Kog'Maw, Varus, Kalista. So Varus and Kalista primarily for pro and elite play. Kog'Maw more for just generalistic. He does, I believe, rush his item. Well, I might rush Bork into Ginsu's. Don't see a lot of Kog'Maws. Like Bork, Ginsu's, Runans, the other item. Definitely a solid build on Kog'Maw. Allows him to output a lot of DPS. Gives him, this is just a decent DPS buff towards Kog'Maw. Definitely makes him a nicer champion to play. But yeah, Kalista, Varus also really going to benefit from these. Now that Kalista has an AP ratio on her E. Hullbreaker is going to be bug fixed to so fix a bug that caused Hullbreaker buff to minions to unintentionally fall off when an allied champion was there. This wasn't supposed to happen. This is a big bug, big fix towards Hullbreaker. Definitely gives it a lot more power. Kaynit Rukun is going to be losing 2% of its maximum health, and the shield refresh cooldown is going to go from 12 seconds to 15 seconds. I know this item tends to be very much favored by pro and elite players. Within solo queue, most of the magic resist options are very competitive with each other. I imagine this stays competitive with each other. The likes of Thorns, Spirits, Abyssal aren't bad in the situations where you need them. Kaynit Rukun was just slightly stronger. This definitely brings them all kind of in line with each other, so this is a relatively nice change. World of Ages is going to be gaining 50 health and 100 mana. What isn't a bad item at the moment. The likes of Twisted Fate, I imagine, will be very strong next patch. He tends to build this primarily if you are going AP Twisted Fate. Other champions like Anivia will definitely benefit from this as well. So yeah, big buff towards Roa here, and a lot of the champions will really enjoy this. Collector is going to be losing 5 AD. Collector doing relatively well at the moment. The likes of Nyla, Samira, Jhin, MF, Caitlyn are already benefiting from this item. GP is another one. There are a lot of champions which do like it. Losing 5 AD will definitely hurt them. Allows kind of the rise of some of the on-hit marksmen, the Essence Reaver marksmen. Yeah, nice change here. Might not have been needed with the buffs towards Ginsu's and Essence Reaver. But yeah, a change nonetheless. Yomu's being nerfed towards range champion. Sad Argot noises. If you play Olafality Argot, I feel bad for you. 20 out of combat movement speed on range, and then 5% on range for the active bonus. This is a big nerf, especially towards just the active value of the item. The stat line is not bad. It's not the most expensive item in the game either. So I imagine the likes of Jin, MF will still pick this up. They are two of the primary people who are going to be punished by this item, as they do buy it a lot. There was one other. I think Draven sometimes picks this up, but not as much as the other two. He can still opt into like crit variations. But yeah, these champions are definitely nerfed by this. Allows opening up of more builds. Yeah. Archangel's is going to be losing 100 total cost on the item. It's also combined cost will just go down by 100 because of this. Archangel's not in the worst spot at the moment. Definitely a good item on certain champions. This kind of a buff definitely does help it. Allows it to be accessible early on into the game. If you can stack it up and get that shield by the time you finish the completion of this item, then I imagine most champions will really enjoy it. Echoes of Lillia is going to be losing 10 damage on the shards, but the heal is going to be doubled. So, I mean, this is a buff towards the item. The champions which tend to build it value the heal per shard, maybe more than they value the damage, and the heal is going up by 20 compared to the damage lost by 10. Hextech Alternator is going to be going from 50 to 125 to 65 damage at all levels. This is a nerf towards the item, as you tend to, by the time you have the item picked up, have the damage value higher than 65. Hextech Rocket Belt is going to be losing even more damage, going down from 125 to 100, losing 5% AP ratio. Big nerf here. This is definitely going to hurt some of the users of the item. Kraken Slayer is going to be going from 35 to 85, levels 8 to 18, and a 65% total AD ratio and a 60% AP ratio. To just a level scaler, it's going to go from 140 to 310. I believe this is a slight nerf towards the item. But if you're not picking up a lot of AD and a lot of AP, then it's a bit of a buff. So, yeah. Champions which tend to go Kraken Slayer into like durable builds, maybe like the Belveth or the Viego in certain situations, where they're not picking up as much AD options. Will probably prefer this, but champions which build a lot of AD will definitely be hurt by a change like that. Lichbane is going to be having its base AD reduced from 100% to 75% base AD. So bit of an nerf there. Lichbane, very strong item at the moment. Luden's Companion is going to have its total cost reduced by 100. The ability power is going to be going up by 5. But the damage is going to be losing it's going to be losing a bit of damage on the AP ratio, going from 8% to 4%. But flat damage is going to go from 40 to 45. So overall, a buff, unless you're running really high AP values, something like a Vigar maybe, should be a better item for most champions. Malignant's going to be going down by 100 gold in cost. The damage per second is going to go down by 1% AP ratio. And the magic resist shred is going to be a 10 flat at all levels. A bit of a buff early on into the game. Once again, champions which don't build a huge amount of AP on top of this item, so non-Rabadon Spires, maybe something like a Swain, will definitely benefit from this. Until like later on into the game where they have like their large AP items and they are able to get like the 12 magic resist shred as like a first item option, definitely becomes a bit more favorable. Profane Hydra damage is going to be going up by 10% on the passive cleave damage and then 5% for ranged champions. The active is going to be going down though by 150% total AD to 130% total AD. So yeah, access to a bit more generalistic damage, but the damage on the cleave is going to be going down. Static Shiv is going to be going down by 300 total cost. The combined cost is going to go from 400 to 100, and the damage on the Electroshock is going to go from 100 to 180 to 90 at all levels. This definitely helps it as a first option. It is a very good stat stick item. The damage, of course, is not very high at this point. 90 at all levels is a very limited amount of damage. You're not really building it for that at this point. You're getting a bit of wave clear, but yeah, the main value here, cheap statistic item. If some champions will really enjoy the stat line, and if they do, then there is a high chance they do pick this up as a first option. But if you're mainly looking for items with value on their, what they do, then static probably is not the item that the champion will opt into. Storm Razor going to be going down, but it's going to be losing its 25% total AD ratio. The bolt damage is going to go up from 90 to 100. The bolt movement speed is going to be going up though from 1 to 1.5, which is a nice buff. This is definitely a large amount of power to give towards the item. Having movement speed on marksman is really important for repositioning, getting out of spots so you can auto kite back and then look for a different angle, stuff like this. So yeah, not this. If anything, is probably a buff towards the item, even though it is losing a bit of damage. Yeah, once again, if your champion builds a lot of AD, something like a Jhin, then this will definitely hurt them. But like as a first option, it is definitely a buff. Storm Surge is going to have its AP power brought back up towards 90 or to 95. It was at 100. Obviously, that got nerfed back down. The scroll damage is going to go from 100 to 200 to 40 flat, 140 flat, and the AP ratio is going to be staying the same. So, bit of a buff early on into the game for Storm Surge, but a 60 damage nerf later on. So the Sky is going to be losing 10 attack damage, but going to be gaining 150 health. This is big for champions which really value the health. For champions within the jungle, I imagine this is a bit of a nerf, as you tend to value the clear speed a bit more than having a bit more bonus health. But if you're looking to be a bit more tanky, then yes, there is a lot of value here. Titanic Hydra is going to be gaining 50 health on the item, and the damage on the active is going to go from 6% for melee, 3% for ranged, 4% for melee, 2% for ranged. Rift Herald is going to be changed a bit because it is very hard to control. I've seen a lot of pro players mess this up, and if it's a consistent thing happening competitive, then yes, the AI on this is not the greatest, and it is frustrating. Sometimes it goes the wrong way when you're clicking forward. Yeah. For the first 3 seconds after spawning, Rift Herald has very high maneuverability and will be easier to turn. Every 2 seconds after Herald, slowly becomes less maneuverable as its speeds increase. Damage from wall collision, crashing into wall when controlling Herald will deal damage equal to that of crashing into the tower. Into a tower to Shelly. Crashing into a wall controlling Herald will do 20% of the damage received, compared to crashing into a tower to Shelly. We don't have a game. Player summoned, Rift Herald, trinket spawning has been sped up by 1 second. So yeah, nice changes here. Definitely going to make Rift Herald a bit more favourable to control. I know it was frustrating beforehand. A couple of ARAM adjustments. I'm not going to cover them here. But Mythic shop rotation, so Prestige Dragon Monster for Khan is leaving the shop. Behavioural systems. There is an increased penalty towards increased duration towards chat penalties, and a bunch of bug fixes and quality of life changes. I believe there was one towards I saw the one towards Caitlyn where you could fire 2 headshots was Titanic Hydra was used. It wasn't the greatest item on Caitlyn, but it is nice to see that it has been fixed. I believe there was one from Hullbreaker on Urgot W, which is a huge buff towards Urgot. This definitely makes him a lot more powerful. And there was one towards Uday, I believe, where it meant that his R and his Q were the formers which counted towards ultimate haste, on like items, things like Ultimate Hunter. Upcoming skins of chromas, so we've got Heaven Skill Lee Sin, Heaven Skill Divine Lee Sin. This is like the paired legendary skin, I believe that's how this works. Heaven Scale Master Yi, Heaven Scale Janna, Heaven Scale Ezreal, Heaven Scale Kaiser, Heaven Scale Diana, and Prestige Heaven Scale Ezreal. Nice bunch of skins here, and the Chromas to go alongside them. And yeah, not a bad patch. Once again, continue follow up on the big season changes. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next one. Goodbye.